not me because that's really cold.
Yeah. Right. I didn't want to.
This thing kills me. Yeah.
Get up and I can get to the office if I sit. Outside my window in the morning. So who knows what the weather is.
Of course, mice.
Good to see you.
The Omahas brought in their horses. We have here, with this on it, I was just a little bit surprised by this. Normally it's not here, but this little particular bare spot is the site of one of the earth lodges. And as you can see, there's sort of an east entry. You can see where the sun is coming up, and you can kind of see where that is. But this was not here. It hasn't been. I was a little bit shocked that they would put it there. But again, you know, it's a park. You know, we make allowances for this. But in terms of places and sacred spaces, to me, this would be a very sacred area. This is where human beings dwelt. This is where my people were. Some family, or families probably, lived here. And they raised their children here. I mean, all the things that families do, and you know, relate with one another. And I saw this. I almost walked past it, but Leah stopped me. She said, "No, this is the spot," because I was not prepared for that. 3 children, and you're going to have the in-laws and the grandchildren, and all the women will do all the cooking. They'll do all these other things. The men, of course, will continue with the hunt. They're going to bring in the buffalo meat from this past summer. The women will bring in their produce. We also had caches that were not located too far from the earth lodges. They were often 6 to 8 feet deep. And then they had an entrance where just one person could go down in, and then they would lower a lighted torch so they could see. And this is where we would store, the men would often store their regalia, their sacred objects, maybe the pipe, because you don't just have those things lying around either in the tree or the earth lodge. But also the seeds, corns, beans, and squash would be stored, would be dried, and so you had this very well-balanced, healthy diet throughout the entire year. My mother said, "Don't tell anybody," but here I go, big mouth. "That place is loaded with medicine." I said, "Really?" "Yeah," she said. I said, "Did you?" "Yeah," she said, because she was out here on her wheelchair and she was looking, she said, I said, "What?" She said, "Oh, there's medicine out there." And I said, "Which one?" She said, "I'm not even telling you." And I said, "Mom," because she knew I'd do what I was saying, right? Okay. Basically, again, the experience here is to see it as the Omaha saw it, just to see the land. I mean, that tree could talk. It'd probably have a lot of stories to tell us, okay? I mean, so when you look at, this is where they were, much as they were on the reservation, but we had this, we had what was up north. I mean, so we were basically and essentially all over. I mean, so it wasn't like, you know, we were just in one little area and that was it. And you know how we divide up resources. But when we were on the hunt, then that was considered the formal lifestyle. And this is when we did live in our movable homes, our trailers, our mobile homes, the teepees. And then once that was over, then people broke up, and that became what was known as the informal manner of living.
Well, when we were here during the summertime, we talked with the education director for Fontenelle Forest, and we have asked that he allow us to help create some of the learning trunks that come from here. And so as we start to write the curriculum, the things that we're looking at in the Omaha Public Schools will also be benefiting here, because we're going to tell these stories as part of those learning experiences. So when kids come here, they can take an Indigenous perspective of Fontenelle Forest while they're exploring and doing all the other things that they'll be doing. So that's
Someone did mention that this is not Big Elk's first burial. He was buried, this is the 3rd time. First he was on Elk Hill. I thinking it's more this direction. That was the site of Bellevue College. At one time, it's the highest point, I believe, in Bellevue. And from what I understand, they are buried at the highest point of any land. Since they had the college up there, they moved him to another site, I believe, where Bellevue College is now. And so when they built that college, they had to dig him up again. And this is the final resting place. And I don't...
His Omaha name is pronounced Umpatunga. Like a real hard D, even though they spelled with the T, it looks like Umpatunga. And I've heard people say Ongbatanga, but it's that nasal, like you say Omaha, okay, or Omaha. It's Umpatunga. Very easily said. Try it.
Umpatunga.
Umpa.
Umpatunga.
Tunga.
Tunga.
Umpatunga. Forget the T. Umpatunga. Umpatunga. Yeah. So, and this is what the city of Bellevue did in honor of Big Elk. And what you know, I mean, she is not considered a princess in Omaha. She's just she's a daughter of a tribal leader. So there's none of this European conception that if you come from prominent families that this entitles you to or makes you a prince or a princess. It's there, but there's no way that she can regard as a princess. And there was you didn't have to bend your knee to these people. I mean, they were part of the tribe. She was the daughter of the chief, so okay, fine. But the Europeans that married into these families knew exactly what they were doing. Lucien was a fur trader, and in order to secure the fur trade, to establish his company, you go to the top. And of course, Umpatunga is the principal chief of the top seven. And then, of course, with my own ancestor, Manuel Lisa, he was also establishing this fur trade, and so they had the American Fur Trading Company, I think it's called. And so this is where they came supposedly to make their fortunes in fur trading. And of course, fur trading eventually gave out, but they knew who to marry. So here's the principal chief, with these eligible daughters that, of course, they marry into. Manuel Lisa decides that he's had enough of, after the birth of his two children, decides he's had enough of frontier life. And so this is when he decides to take his two children because he wants to raise them in a civilized manner.
Twin Cities is easy to navigate. That we got.
Heard about it when we were little, that they're going to build this highway, and they're going to destroy Hobo Park, and I was like, oh no, they won't. I don't think that's true. No, because destroy Hobo? No way, they can't. They did, and so you can see, this whole area was just, it was fun, and to see, when we came down here, after it was done, and we went down memory lane with my mother. She looked at it, she was like, oh my gosh, they really did it. They really did it. They took it out, because we just couldn't imagine that something that seemed so permanent could just be, obliterated. So they had to, I'm sure, cut down trees. We didn't see it. We just saw it afterwards. So this is Hobo's Park, anyhow. But it was that kind of feeling. And then my aunt, of course, she lived down there on 16th Street, and there's some more apartments. And the reason these were rather very cheap apartments was because they were not allowed to go in certain areas of Omaha. So if they were Indian, rents were closed to you. Houses were definitely closed to us. They didn't want us living or renting houses. So the Indian people, the only thing that they had in order to work and provide for their families was to live in an apartment. So a lot of apartment dwellers were certainly in this area, and our male relatives would walk down, and they worked a lot at something called It's a coffee company, the Butternut Coffee. Yes, Butternut Coffee. And they worked down there, and of course there was no public transportation for them in those days, so they walked. Themselves on the freeway. I just go down here.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go down here.
Yeah, yeah.
We're gonna see the decision.
This area is called the Mormon Bridge, and they pretty much memorialized this area where the Omahas and the Mormons, and some people say that it was a really good and friendly one, but history tends to say otherwise. It was a very contentious coming together of both cultures at this point. The Mormons, apparently on their way west, needed a place to winter, and so established something called winter quarters. And so, again, dwindling resources, plus the Omaha tribe was becoming somewhat beleaguered by continuous attacks by the Dakota people, and so they felt that, okay, well, if the if the Mormons were here, they promised to provide protection. The United States said they would, and so they somewhat, reluctantly allowed for the Mormons to camp in this. I don't know if specifically in this area. Maybe the Mormon Museum has more specific information, but basically they've memorialized all of this with the building of the bridges. And again, it's something that all Omahas are aware of. The Mormon Bridge, down by the Mormon Bridge. I mean, this is where the Mormons crossed to get to their winter quarters, etc.
Oh,